Hi everybody, welcome to the Week 9 edition of the Daily Record High School Football Insider. I'm sports editor Aaron Dorksen along with sports writer Mike Plant. It's hard to believe it's Week 9 already of the football season. There's one clear headliner game this week. That's when undefeated Norwayne goes to 6-2 Smithville, but a lot of other action too.
Yeah, Aaron, we're going to get to talk all about the big game between Norwayne and Smithville at the end of the show. But before that, we've got a lot of other games on the schedule.
Right, we'll start out in the Ohio Cardinal Conference, the wacky Ohio Cardinal Conference, where Ashland starts out 0-3, and yet they're in sole possession of first place. West Holmes 5-3, 3-2. They're one game back. They're going to Worcester, which surprisingly, incredibly, Worcester's in last place in the OCC at 3-5, 1-4. Worcester lost a 38-35 game to Mansfield Senior last week. It was Worcester's fourth loss by a touchdown or less. They just cannot quite seem to get that one or two key play, the game-changing plays, Mike, that swing the tide.
Right, and we've talked about their inability to stop teams defensively, but really, I know you were at the game last week, and when you came back and we're talking about the game, that their offense really didn't put up the numbers yardage-wise that they normally do, and they allowed 24 points to start the second half. Weather might be a factor Friday night, and that'll play right into the hands of West Holmes with their three-headed rushing attack of Garrett Mackey, Joey Gonzalez, and Lane Perrone, the sophomore who stepped in and gained almost 500 yards. In the other area matchup in the OCC, the Orville Red Riders at 5-3 and 3-2, hanging on the outside of the OCC race, will make that long trek down to Clear Fork. And the Colts are 3-5, 2-3 in the conference. After starting out, the OCC played 2-0. They've dropped 3 in a row. Orville, as I just said, they're on the outside looking in on the fringe of the OCC race, but they still, Aaron, have a lot of their goals in front of them. I know that they're trying to get healthier, and I know Drew Brenner stepped in last week and really led them to maybe a season-changing victory over at Mansfield-Madison.
Well, that was a huge win because if you look at the website projections, Orville has clinched a playoff spot. You know, they're 5-3, but even if they go 5-5, which is obviously not what they want to do, supposedly they're all but a lock to make the playoffs, but they want to close out the season strong, and they just need to get healthy. We've been talking about it most of the season, about getting healthy, and you mentioned earlier in the West Holmes Worcester game about the poor field conditions. I think everywhere we're out this week with all the rain we've had, we're going to see some wild, unexpected plays that help decide the games.
In the Principal Athletics Conference, we have Tuslaw at 4-4, 2-3 in the pack, hosting surprising Indian Valley. Indian Valley's 5-3, 4-1 in the pack, and they have one of the top freshmen I've seen in a long time in running back Jake Davis, a 190-pounder who went over 1,000 yards rushing last week. And then the Triway Titans, still looking for their first win of the season, will make the long journey down to Zorville, to take on Tusky Valley. 4-4 Tusky Valley, 3-2 in the conference. And Aaron, I know Triway hasn't been much to celebrate this year, but to play freshman quarterback Parker Carmichael continues to impress. Last week he had 289 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, including a couple to Marcus Birch. And last in the MBC, the Mid-Buckeye Conference, we have Loudonville at 3-5 overall, but 3-2 in the MBC, going down to Johnstown to take on Northridge, and that's a game when they first started playing, when Loudonville joined the MBC. Northridge hung a 70-0 thumping on the Redbirds. Well, last year Loudonville got to repay that by the same 70-0 score, so I think there's a little bit of an edge to Loudonville. They don't really forget that.
Yeah. Another point on that Triway game, the Titans are 0-8, and I know, Mike, you did some research. Triway's never gone 0-10 in the season since the school was formed. The old Shreve had some winless seasons. But so good luck to the Titans. They knew it would be a tough year, but maybe not that tough. We skipped down to the Suburban League. Nordonia is going to visit Cloverleaf. The Colts have been kind of up and down this season, but we'll wish good luck to Doug Haas and company in that one. And in the Wayne County Athletic League, let's start taking our look at the slate in that league. Let's talk about first Chippewa winless going to Dalton with 1 win. The Bulldogs have won 9 straight in this, Mike, and obviously not a lot of winning for either of these teams, and they probably both feel like it's a game they could get a win in.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this game kind of exciting, because you know, they practice all week with an eye towards, hey, we can get a W Friday night. And I think Dalton, I had a chance to see Dalton last week. Chase Moyer, who's only a junior, does a lot of different things for the Bulldogs, and I think they have a bright future. The jury's still out on Chippewa. And then we have Rittman at 1-7, 1-4 in the Wayne County Athletic League, going to Jeromesville to take on the Hillsdale Falcons, who, like Norwayne, are unbeaten at 8-0, 5-0 in the league. And Aaron, I think the key thing for Hillsdale in this game is they look to next week. They just want to come out of it healthy.
Yep, come out of it healthy, fine-tune some things as much as you can in these weather conditions. Again, that are just, these fields are going to be terrible out there. But Hillsdale, they have no margin for error. Most people think they're going to have to win the Norwayne game also next week to make the playoffs, because their strength of schedule just hasn't been there. Another matchup in the Wayne County League, Waynedale at 4-4 is going to Northwestern 2-6. The Huskies have been shut out 3 straight times and finally got some stuff going at Chippewa. They beat them 47-13. And the Huskies have shown some good flashes, too. This could be a pretty competitive game, Mike.
Oh, I think it will be. It has been in recent years. Northwestern actually played Hillsdale pretty tough last week, and they were hurt by 7 turnovers. Not too many teams are going to overcome that, but a good sophomore combination in quarterback Malachi Noletti and running back Tyler Smith. Waynedale, after getting outscored 119-0 in 3 previous losses, scored 33 points in the first half, getting a couple TD catches from Colton Swinehart, 1 from Chris Constable, and a couple TDs from Blake Miller to get back on track.
So there's a look at all the games except the headliner, Norwayne at Smithville. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that one in a minute.
Welcome back to the Daily Records High School Football Insider. Alongside sports editor Aaron Dorksen, I'm Mike Plant. And we've come to the big game of the week, a game a lot of people have been looking forward to for a few weeks. The game where the Norwayne Bobcats, the undefeated Norwayne Bobcats, will make the short little trip down Route 3 to Smithville to take on the Smithies at 6-2 and 4-1. And much has been made of how, not that just that Norwayne's been winning this year, Aaron, but how dominant they've been. You've been around Wayne County Athletic League football for a long time. Just where does this team rank as far as dominating their opposition?
Well, at this point, they're as dominant a team as I've seen in my 15 years or so. They're outscoring opponents by an average margin of about 53-6, but they haven't played the 2 best teams in the WCAL, so a lot left to play. But if you crunch some numbers, which we did this week, they're on pace to be the highest scoring team in WCAL history, topping the 2003 Waynedale team, and their defense on the other side is the best we've seen since Northwestern in 2006, that only gave up 42 points in the regular season. Then a stat that's not really a stat is that Norwayne has not even played its first string defense as a group or offense in the 4th quarter all year. That's how one-sided it's been. And the first team defense has only given up 3 touchdowns, Mike. But they knew they were going to get a game somewhere along the line, and the question is, will it be Smithville this week? The Smithies have been impressive too.
Yeah, we talked about Norwayne's offense. Smithville has done it in their own style, running the football. They're running for almost 400 yards a game. They've really been unstoppable, and they're getting those 388 yards a game rushing at 8 yards at a clip, which is pretty impressive. Led by their 2 senior running backs, Mark Hilty and Ian Steiner, who both double up as linebackers on a pretty stout defense. And one thing that I think the Smithies may have a slight advantage in this game, Aaron, is that they will outweigh, along the front, they'll outweigh Norwayne's defensive line. Smithville's offensive line will outweigh Norwayne's defensive line by almost 40 pounds a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in a muddy field, that type of thing, It'll be interesting to see. Adam Wallace, the Norway quarterback, certainly a Player of the Year candidate in our area. The Zimmerly brothers, Tyler and John, running the football. John Maybaugh has been outstanding as a wide receiver. John Wilson is a linebacker and lineman. So just throw a few of the Norway names out there. You know, I think Norway's still the big favorite in this, but what do you think Smithville needs to do, Mike, if they can win the game?
Well, Norway, they've got so many points they've scored this year, but they can't score if they don't have the ball. So I think that if Smithville can take one of their traditional game-burning long drives at 8 yards a pop, keep the ball, keep Norway's offense off the field. And I think, too, that the games I've seen in Norway, they've had a lot of wide receivers running free across because teams stack up and try to stop the Zimmerly brothers. Smithville's got a little bit better defensive backs than they've been given credit for. They've got some decent speed back there with Alex Bates and Tolan Shane, Tyler Boss. So I think conditions will play a part in it, but I think really Smithville has played well too in the games where they haven't turned the ball over.
Right, yeah, I would agree with all those points. I was at Smithville one year when they won a league clinching game or something like that in the early 2000s. They had something like a 23-play drive, so it ran up a whole quarter. So it'll be vintage Keith Schrock ball if they can get the win. That completes the look at this week's game. Mike, I know you want to tell the viewers we have some special things planned for next week's final, Week 10 wrap-up show.
Well, yeah, Week 10 is always a big week in the area with the annual Worcester-Orville rivalry, and next week we'll be taking our show on location out to the annual captain's luncheon at the Pines when the Worcester and Orville captains and coaches meet and break a little bread before that 101st meeting of that game. And you can read about all of Friday night's games in Saturday's Sports Extra and get your sports every day in the Daily Record.
As always, thanks for watching and reading.